Negotiating the terms of renting a space can be a harrowing and overwhelming experience for a lot of people, not even just first-time renters, but veterans to the way things work. Hi folks, I'm Paul from Marshall Business Matters. Today we're talking about some simple tips and tricks for negotiating on a retail location for your martial arts school, including some of the things that you might not have known are negotiable. Stay tuned. So whether you're a first-time renter or a long-time veteran, there are some things that you want to keep in mind when discussing with a landlord or a leasing agent the specific terms of your rental agreement on a retail space. Now, obviously, our channel is dedicated to promoting growth and success for any school, retail, and small clubs working out of a community center. But if your goal is growth and you're growth oriented, then at some point you're probably going to be looking at getting a space for yourself. And so I think that this video speaks probably a lot to those first-time renters, but we'll toss in a couple of tidbits for those veterans as well. Let's get right to it. When you're looking for your space and you found your space, you're going to start that negotiation process. Now, oftentimes that'll be done through the commercial realtor that you're working with, but sometimes you might find yourself negotiating directly with the landlord or with the person at the corporation that's in charge of writing lease agreements. And so regardless of who you're working with, there are a couple of things that you want to keep in mind that are negotiable terms under any commercial lease. The first thing that you're going to want to keep in mind is rent. Rent is negotiable. Your rent is going to be a component of two factors. It's going to be base and it's going to be what they call triple nets, which are things like taxes for the property, communal expenses, things like that. And so the number that you pay, your rent, is going to be a combination of those two numbers. Now, oftentimes you will get trapped by the landlord or by the realtor that you're working with. They'll say, well, that's not negotiable. Those triple nets are fixed. We can't do anything about that. And they will try to get you to focus only on the base price. And this is good since it's salesmanship 101, right? It's the exact same way that if you go to buy a car, they're going to get you to try and focus on the payment, not on the actual cost of the vehicle. It's kind of the same thing here, only in reverse. They're trying to get you to focus on the rent base, and they're kind of hoping that you ignore the triple nets. This is how they kind of cover their nut. But one thing that many people aren't aware of is that, yes, the base is absolutely negotiable. In commercial real estate, it's usually price per square foot. So you have to kind of do a little bit of research, maybe work with a realtor and figure out what the average price per square foot is. There might be particular features, benefits, or value to the location that you're looking at that increase that. Or there might be things about it that lower the cost per square foot that you can negotiate. And again, that's why you would probably want to work with a realtor and not do this off on your own. But the base is absolutely negotiable. If they're offering a space and they're saying it's $1.70 per square foot plus triple nets, there's no reason in the world that you can't say, well, I'll give you $1.40 plus triple nets. No reason. It's negotiation. And here's the golden rule of negotiation. The golden rule of negotiation is that the worst you get is a no. That's the golden rule of negotiation. If you're at the table with someone and you're trying to work out a deal, the worst that they're going to do is say no. That's it. And remember this too. If you don't ask, it's already a no. Or it's a no without you asking. So why not? Why not try to get a good deal? Negotiate that base. Another thing that people don't necessarily consider is that while the triple nets typically themselves are not negotiable, because the base is negotiable, you can ask that the triple nets be incorporated. And what that means is that we're not going to talk about the base. We're not going to talk about the triple nets. We're going to talk about how much money I am paying you, Mr. and Mrs. Landlord, every month. And that forces them to say, well, okay, what is the rent? Because the worst thing that you can do is say, okay, yeah, this space is great. It's, you know, it's $1 whatever per square foot. It's this many square feet. I can definitely afford that. And then you get to signing and you're like, oh, those triple nets, that means I'm going to be paying $700 a month more than I thought I was. You got to pay attention to that. So that's number one. That is always negotiable. Rent is negotiable, always, always, always. The other thing that's negotiable that people don't necessarily think about is unpaid time. So time is negotiable. This is especially true of first-time renters, people who are stepping into a space for the first time. It is actually pretty common in the commercial real estate world to be able to say, okay, yeah, these terms look good, the price is fair, the triple nets are fine, the rent is fine. Here's the thing, it's gonna take me a couple of months to get this thing off the ground. It might even take me upwards of a year. So what I'm gonna ask is that you go ahead and let me have the space rent-free for those first 6 months while I'm getting the business off the ground, while I'm getting things started, and then we'll start the regular rent payments on month number 7. That's something that you can do. Commercial real estate is incredibly negotiable, and a lot of times these landlords, they're just looking for people to step into the building. Now, oftentimes, if you enter into a relationship like that, they're going to request first month and last month's rent as some sort of a deposit, so that they're not just giving you the keys and not getting anything in exchange. And then oftentimes the landlord will request that you pay at least the triple nets on the space for the duration of that quote unquote free occupancy. But it's very common. In fact, that's what I did with my school. I walked in and said, I'm not going to pay rent for the first 6 months. I'll pay the triple nets for the first 6 months, but I won't pay rent for the first 6 months because I need time to get the ball rolling. I need time to get off the ground. And I got an okay, I got an affirmation, and that's exactly what we did at my school. So this is something that you can do. You can negotiate the cost itself, the rent, the triple nets. You can't negotiate those, but you can negotiate this. And you can negotiate for time. Another thing that you can negotiate for that a lot of people don't know is something called improvements. So you can negotiate literally for dollars on improvements to the space. So let's say that you walk into a space and it's kind of grungy, like the carpet needs to be replaced. Obviously it smells funky and it's dirty. The carpet's 20 years old, and the bathroom fixtures are a little bit loose. And a lot of times landlords will just say, you know, rent the space as is, and any improvements you make are your business. That's fine. That's the landlord's prerogative. It's also your prerogative to walk away from the deal if they don't sweeten the pot. And in that kind of a situation, you could very reasonably approach the landlord and say, yeah, I like the space in terms of the bones and the size and the layout, and it's going to work for me. However, I'm not interested in putting out the money to replace that carpet. I don't have any interest in those types of repairs. I need you to do X, Y, and Z before I go ahead and take control of the space. And that's very similar to a residential real estate transaction. If you've ever bought or sold a house, you know that it's very common for buyers to come to the sellers and say, yes, we want to buy the house. Here's our offer, but this offer is contingent upon you replacing the roof, or this offer is contingent upon you replacing the hot water heater in the upstairs, and things like that. It's basically the same thing. And you can come to them and say, yeah, I'll take control of the space and I'll move in on January 1st. And when I move in, I expect X, Y, and Z to be done, or the deal is no good. And you can get that in writing and have that be part of a contract. Another way you can do it is say, when we talked about buying time, you can say to a landlord, yeah, the numbers look good, and I'm happy with everything. I do want that carpet replaced. The landlord could say, no, I'm not going to replace the carpet. You know, that's your responsibility. In which case you might counter and say, okay, well, if you don't want to put in the manpower to replace the carpet, then I will, but I want a credit on my lease for the amount of money that we can negotiate at X dollars. I want an X dollar credit on my lease for my investment in replacing the carpet and making the space workable for me. And so these are things that people don't necessarily know about or think about. And then the final thing that you can negotiate that people don't necessarily know about is, again, time. And how time relates specifically to the money or to the improvements. So In commercial real estate, it's fairly common to see lease terms of 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. They like these odd numbers and these big numbers. The longer term that you are willing to sign with the landlord, the more gracious the landlord is going to be in respect to what they're going to be willing to do for tenant improvements or for comped time or for a reduction in the rate. Because again, it's the same way that we run contracts out of my school. A longer commitment earns you a lower price on your monthly lay. Same thing for the landlord. In corporate real estate, a big number that they look at, and specifically a big number that investors look at, is occupancy. Occupancy is king. Not necessarily gross or net revenue, but occupancy, because an empty building is an unattractive building. And one of the things that investors look at in real estate is the promise that they can sell out of their investment if they decide to move their money somewhere else. And so a high occupancy rate percentage is almost like an affirmation to investors that this is a good building, this is a good space, this is a popular area, we have lots of occupancy in this building, so it's a safe investment. Whereas a building with very low occupancy is not such a good investment. It might be in a crummy part of town, it might have all sorts of problems, and that's why people aren't moving into setting up shop there. So for the landlord, from the landlord's perspective, they want the occupancy rate to be super high. And that's why you can get, tenant improvement dollars. That's why you can get free time. That's why they're willing to negotiate on the rent, because at the end of the day, a big part of their game, behind the curtains, is warm butts in seats, warm bodies in the building. And so if you walk in there and say, yeah, I'll sign a 10-year lease, and I want X and Y and Z and Z, then 9 times out of 10, they'll be like, oh, yeah, we can talk about those things, no problem. If you walk in and say, I'm trying to start a school here, and I think I can, I don't want to commit to more than a year, they're not going to negotiate with you on anything. They're not negotiating with you on anything. You're a short-term investment for them. They really expect you to go out of business and be done with you. So they're going to try and squeeze as much money out of you as they can in the short term, right? The shorter the term, the more money they want out of you on the upfront. The longer the term, the more they're looking at you as a stable investment for occupancy purposes for their building. So there it is, pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Couple of caveats. Number one, don't do this by yourself. Hire a commercial realtor. Hire somebody who really understands the commercial real estate market in your area and get them to help you with the negotiations. Number two, if you sit down to the table, you must be willing to step away from the table. Never walk into a negotiation thinking that you must have that particular space. Your power in negotiation is 100% contingent upon your willingness to walk away from the deal. And if you're not getting the terms that you want, if it's not seeming fair to you, if you're not getting any give from the landlord, A, that's indicative of what the long-term relationship would look like in the first place, but B, walk away. Walk away from deals that don't seem good. Walk away if you're not getting any type of negotiation with your landlord. Again, you have to be willing to walk away, otherwise you have no power. There it is. These 4 simple things to keep in mind in terms of what is negotiable. Hire a commercial realtor and don't be afraid to walk away. You'll set yourself up for success for the long run. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Make sure that you ring the little bell so that you don't miss future updates. Head over to the comment sections or in the comments of this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you think I missed anything. We can have a conversation about it. And remember, you watch Marshall Business Matters because Marshall Business matters. Take care.